freedom,
family,
world unity,
all these things and more will be discussed on this podcast.
real stories, real people, real debates. On this podcast, we like to express our freedoms and talk about anything and everything goes.
Like freedom, family is important to us, and anybody that is listening, watching, or coming on the show as a guest star are all considered part of the greatest family to ever bless the solar system, the human race. No matter who you are, where you come from, you will always have a voice here on this podcast.
We like to flex our First Amendment, where all speeches and opinions are accepted for the right of freedom of speech. We have a saying we like to live by. Live life with eyes wide open. Being open-minded leads to true understanding of the world as it really is. Please, come, join us, and enjoy this experience as we embark on this journey of truth as we dismantle the subjective truth. I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm your co-host, Victoria.
And you're experiencing high consciousness.
Disclaimer. Any and all information on topics presented are to the best of all who is present in each episode's knowledge. The goal of this podcast is to bring people together and set the example we all wish to see in our everyday lives. Whether it's home life, education, politics, history, business, etc. Any and all subjects can and will be talked and peacefully debated about on this podcast. On debate episodes, there will be a set rules of debate that hosts and guests alike must follow. We ask that you, the audience, like we ask of our guests, in the comments to please try to keep the language as clean as possible. We are a podcast for entertainment as well as educational purposes. Here, we are all equal no matter what race, age, or gender. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Hi, y'all.
And welcome back to another episode of
High Consciousness.
I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm your co-host, Victoria.
And we are High Consciousness.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode. Today's episode, America, a Narrative History 1.3 today.
So a little recap on last week's chapter, last Thursday's chapter on American history. We read about the Norse discoveries about Eric the Red and his offspring, and about Eric Leeson and
Leif
Erikson and Thorfinn.
Yes, the Thorfinn from the anime Vinland, and we talk about Vinland and where the exact location of Vinland was, which is
Newfoundland.
Newfoundland today.
Newfoundland, but it's Newfoundland is how you pronounce it.
Newfoundland. It's spelled like Newfoundland, but you pronounce it Newfoundland.
And the reasons why the Vikings didn't stay here as long is because, well, simply put, the Native Americans kicked them off.
Yeah, they came, they tried to settle, they got their butts kicked, and they left.
And then we also went over the emergence of Europe and how the Renaissance reshaped the world until Christopher Columbus explored it.
Well, yes and no. You're kind of half right there. You have half the idea. What really happened was...
Oh, please tell us.
See, what happened was, during the Renaissance period, geography was grossly misproportioned. We learned about Eratosthenes, or however you say his name, Eratosthenes.
Mm-hmm.
Eratosthenes, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
How he had grossly disproportioned Asia, making it like a lot bigger than what it actually was, and then there was Cardinal Pierre Alai or something like that had his own version of the map, the Imago Mundi, which means picture of the world, from the early 14th century, and he had made the world a lot smaller than what it actually was, and this didn't change until Christopher Columbus made his sail to the New World and started mapping, what all was over here, and they got a really good idea, a little more of what the exact proportions of the world and its countries were.
Mm-hmm. A lot of good stuff in the last chapter.
Oh, and that's when the time of the chronometer was finally invented.
We don't know when exactly it was invented, but we know it was around.
Yeah, we do. It says around. It was invented. Oh yeah, that's right. We discovered that it was invented somewhere like way, way early in before Christ times, like all the way in China. China was the first one to invent it.
Yeah, but we don't know when.
Yeah, it said somewhere between like 200 and 400 BC, I think. Yeah, somewhere between that.
Interesting stuff, folks.
Very interesting stuff. So, we're going to get into it today with 1.3 America, A Narrative History, 1984 edition. Let's get into it. The growth of trade, towns, and nation states. The forces which would invade and reshape the New World found their focus in the rising towns, the centers of a growing trade which slowly broadened the narrow horizons of feudal Europe. In its farthest reaches, this trade, quickened by contacts made during the Crusades, moved either overland or through the eastern Mediterranean all the way to East Asia. Whence Europeans imported spices, medicines, skills, precious stones, dye woods, and perfumes and rugs in return for wines, glassware, wool, and silver of Europe. Wow. So it was kind of like a bartering system in a sense?
Yes.
Okay. The trade gave rise to a merchant class, and they in turn gave a boost of the idea of corporations through which the risks and profits might be shared by many stockholders. Kind of sounds like today. Like, wow. The forces of which would invade and reshape the New World found their focus in rising towns, and they started by doing things with, like, stockholders and trades and having, like, profit profiles and stuff like that.
A barter system.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So this is where parts of the old world created us over here, the new world, and the way that we do things today, the way that our market and our economy system is. It's probably where the foundation was the first, foundational stepping stones of how America, brought upon the world.
Trade Center.
World Trade Center. We had that, but it was the world GDP or something like that. Yeah.
They came in hand to hand with the World Trade Center, though.
The trade was both chancy and costly. Goods commonly passed from hand to hand, from ships to pack trains and back to ships along the way, subject to levies by all sorts of princes and potentates, and with each middleman pocketing whatever he could. The Muslim world, from Spain across North Africa into Central Asia, lay athwart all the more important routes, and this added to the hazards. Little wonder, then, that Europeans should dream of an all-water route to the riches of East Asia and the Indies. Interest in the Orient had been further stirred by traveler stories, of which the best known was the account of the Venetian Marco Polo, written in 1298 and 1299, and printed more than once in the 15th century. Christopher Columbus had a Latin version with margins heavily annotated in his own hand. Ooh. So that's pretty cool.
That Marco Polo had something to dibble-dabble in this, which is true.
Yeah, it is a little true, and a good thing to, like, go and watch if you don't feel like reading a bunch of history. I guess you could just watch history now these days. Marco Polo.
On Netflix.
Like, that's a really good adaptation of the life of Marco Polo and his adventures with and under Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan. Yeah, grandson. Another spur to exploration was the rise of national states with kings and queens who had power and the means to sponsor the search. The growth of the merchant class went hand in hand with the growth of centralized power. Traders wanted to uniform currencies, trade laws, and elimination of trade barriers so became natural allies of the sovereigns who could meet their needs. In turn, merchants and university-trained professionals supplied the monarchs with money, lawyers, and officials. The Crusades to capture the Holy Land, 1095 to 1270, had also advanced the process. The Crusades. Wow. The Crusades to capture the Holy Land. So, like, that was where...
They were trying to capture Jerusalem
Jerusalem.
Going into the Middle East.
Yeah.
Knights were and everything else.
Yeah, the Knights Templar and everything.
Mm-hmm.
They had brought the West into contact with the Eastern autocracy, and had decimated the ranks of the feudal lords. The new means of warfare, the use of gunpowder, and standing armies further weakened the independence of the nobility. In 1492, a map of Western Europe showed several united kingdoms. France, where in 1453 Louis XI had emerged from the Hundred Years' War as head of a unified state. England, where in 1485 Henry VII emerged victorious after 30 years of civil strife. The Wars of the Roses. Spain, where in 1469 Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile united two great kingdoms in marriage. And Portugal, where even earlier, 1384, John I had fought off the Castilians and assured national independence. So that's the same Isabella of Castile that funded Christopher Columbus's voyage.
Mm-hmm. And that's how she became to power.
Ooh.
You realize all these kingdoms came to power.
And Ferdinand of Aragon. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what their house sigil looks like.
I don't know, but all I know
I'm
is...
kind of curious just because, that... Well, we have Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, and we have, the dragon, series, Aragon. So, I'm just a little...
And Aegon.
And then we have, the House of the Dragons with, Aegon and Aemon and all these, Rhys and Is and Aemon names. Aeon names. Aragon House Sigil. Oops. No, I'm not looking for that. Okay. This part. This is what I'm looking for. Huh. Nice Templar symbology all over that. The Tree of Life, the Christ Consciousness, the Knights Templar flag. Interesting.
Are you sure that's the right sigil?
Let me just look up the name again.
Mm-hmm. That makes you type it all out.
Ferdinand of Aragon. Ferdinand of...
Yeah, that's right there.
Aragon. House. Sigil.
Huh.
One of many, it seems. Ferdinand the First. House crest. This one. Oh, it seems we got a few. Why is there so many different ones?
I don't know. I don't know the history of the of the House of Aragon.
Hey, look, there's a family tree. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Stab it. View image. Okay,
And what
so
was the dude's name?
Ferdinand.
I see Fernando.
That's Federico.
No, down below.
Oh, Fernando. Down here. And Lenore of Albuquerque.
Then there's Alfonso.
Oh, so it's Ferdinando the Second that married Isabella, Queen of Castile, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he's Ferdinand the Second, and it doesn't specify that.
Ferdinand the Catholic.
Ferdinand the Catholic. But that's interesting that, his family sigil and stuff.
There's nothing but griffins.
Well, those aren't griffins, those are hippogriffs. There's a difference. It just makes me wonder, where did they get the idea of hippogriffs?
I don't know.
But that can be for another time. The Voyages of Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Portugal, with the guidance of John's son, Prince Henry the Navigator, that exploration and discovery began in earnest. About 1418, Prince Henry set up an information service to collect charts and data on winds and currents. In 1422, he sent out his first expedition to map the coast of Africa, driven partly by the hope of outflanking the Islamic world, partly by the hope
Dum, dum, dum.
by the hope of trade. The Portuguese of 1446 reached Cape Verde by 1471, the equator, and by 1482, the Congo River. In 1488, Bartholomew Diaz rounded the Cape of Good Hope, and 1498, Vasco da Gama, I remember him from 6th grade social studies, went on to Calicut in India. Christopher Columbus, meanwhile, was learning his trade in the School of Portuguese Seamanship. Born in 1451, the son of a weaver in Genoa, Italy, Columbus took the sea at an early age and made up for his lack of formal education by learning geography, navigation, and Latin, still the universal language of the learned. In 1476, he reached Portugal and went on voyages to Guinea, England, and Iceland, married a girl from Madeira, where he made his home for a while, and during the 1480s hatched a scheme to reach the east by sailing west. But Portugal was by then too involved with African explorations. Christopher's brother, Bartholomew, a professional map maker, hawked the idea in the courts of England and France, but they were busy with other matters. In 1486, Columbus turned Queen Isabella, and after years of disappointment finally enlisted the support of King Ferdinand's advisor, Louis de Centangle. Spanish monarchs and himself raised much of the money needed to finance the voyage. The legend that the Queen had to hawk the crown jewels is as spurious as the fable that Columbus had to prove the earth was round. So, even 1484, they're like, Columbus proving that the earth was round was not...
For hindsight.
That's not what that whole thing was. Like, and apparently her having to give up the crown jewels to, or her giving up the crown jewels to support this also was...
false.
A lie. So, like, everything we've learned since we were kids, just on this one with Christopher Columbus, we already learned that it's a lie. There were no crown jewels. The Queen didn't give him the money. It was the king. Well, his advisor, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't out to prove the world was round. He just wanted to try and be sneaky and try to come in to the east from the west.
Yeah, without the Muslims knowing about it.
Without the Muslims knowing about it.
So it sounds like it, anyway.
So, I wonder what the significance is, and I hope we get into it here, but maybe we won't, but I wonder what the dealio is with, the people back then and the Islamic, states or the Muslim faith people.
I don't know, let's find out.
Columbus chartered one ship, the Santa Maria, and the city of Palos supplied two smaller caravels, the Pinta and the Nina, exacted in punishment for some offense against the crown. From Palos, Columbus sailed the Canary Islands by dead reckoning westward. Early on October 12th, 1492, after 33 days at sea, a lookout sighted land in an island in the Bahamas called Iguana by the inhabitants and renamed San Salvador, Holy Savior, by Columbus, later renamed Watlings Island. According to his own reckoning, he was near Japan, and therefore continued to search the Bahamian Keys down to Cuba, a place name which suggested Chipangu, which is Japan, and the eastward to the island he named Hispaniola, or Hispaniola, where he traded for some gold nose plugs and bracelets with the people he insisted upon calling Indians, because he thought he was in India.
Dummy. No, it's like dumb.
But it's like...
He didn't know no better.
He didn't know any better. The friendly islanders of what Columbus thought an outpost of Asia belonged to the Arawak language group who pushed out of South America, had in turn pushed the Siboney Indians into western Cuba and northern Hispaniola. Columbus learned of but did not encounter until his second voyage the fierce Caribs of the Lesser Antilles. Because of their location and the name of the Caribbean Sea was derived from their name, because of their bad habits, our word cannibal was derived from the Spanish version of their name, Canibal. Well, that's just messed up. But...
They ate people.
I mean...
They ate people.
I guess that's what the bad habits would imply there. Yeah, they probably ate people.
They ate people, yeah. From this island.
Mean, when... You gotta do what you gotta do to survive.
You're right.
Don't look at me like that.
Because then you got a grill.
This next line starts off like the night before Christmas. Because it legitimately says, on the night before Christmas, the Santa Maria ran aground off Hispaniola, and Columbus decided to return home with the two caravels, leaving about 40 men behind. On the way home, he discovered the need to move north out of the easterly trade winds, and it brought him westward, which, of course, led him to the Azores and thence to Portugal. The Portuguese thus learned of the new lands first, and John II laid claim to the discoveries on the grounds which they probably lay near the Portuguese Azores. When Columbus finally reached Palos, the news spread rapidly throughout Europe. Ferdinand and Isabella instructed him to prepare for the second voyage and immediately set about shoring up for their legal claim. Pope Alexander VI, who was Spanish, used a papal bull, after bulla or seal, Inter Caetera, which drew an imaginary boundary line 100 leagues west of the Azores and provided that the area beyond should be a Spanish sphere of exploration and possession. Alarmed, the Portuguese monarch dropped his claim but demanded a dividing line further west. In the Treaty of Tordesillas, 1494, Spain accepted a line of 370 leagues west of the Cape Verde Islands. In 1500, Pedro Alvarez Cabral, a Portuguese captain on his way around Africa, swung southwestward along the Atlantic and sighted the hump of Brazil, which lay within the Portuguese sphere. So that's where now we discovered Brazil.
And the Amazon.
Meanwhile, Columbus returned in 1493 with 17 ships and some 1,200 men, and planted the first Spanish colony on Hispaniola, which he learned that the men left behind on the first voyage had been killed. He found the Lesser Antilles, explored to the coast of Cuba, discovered Jamaica, and finally returned to Spain in 1496, leaving his brother Bartholomew in the new colony to found the city of Santo Domingo. On a third voyage in 1498, Columbus found Trinidad and explored the northern coast of South America. Back in Hispaniola, he displayed a disastrous facilitation about dealing with a rebellion, and was arrested and was sent back to Spain in chains. but he gained enough favor to lead a fourth voyage in 1502, during which he sailed along the coast of Central America, still looking in vain for Asia. Marooned on Jamaica for more than a year, he finally returned to Spain in 1504, and in 1506 he died in Valladolid. Which, ironically enough, as we learned in Secret Destiny of America, or not Secret Destiny of America, no, it's America Fun Facts 1.
Mm-hmm. With Vespucci.
With Amerigo Vespucci. Christopher Columbus and Amerigo Vespucci were born like 150 miles away from each other and like 3 days from each other or something, or 3 years from each other, and then they died like 6 years from each other, and then they also like lived/died 300 and something years. It was like double each time. It was really, really strange.
Yep.
And apparently both of them went exploring to the west to discover the New World at the same time, which is why instead of North and South America being called, North and South Columbia, it's called America, because Amerigo Vespucci was the one that had the cartographer make the first map where it had his name splayed on half the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think that's pretty cool myself, Mr. Vespucci.
To the end, Columbus refused to believe that he had discovered anything other than outlying parts of the Orient. Soon after the first voyage, Peter Martyr, in a learned Italian at the Spanish court, wrote letters in which he spoke of a new world, and noted that the size of the globe suggested something other than India, but even he did not find this new world inconsistent with the Indies. So they still thought they were in India, which the whole reason why we call Native Americans Indians is because of dumb Christopher Columbus thinking that he was in India.
It's okay.
It's Christopher Columbus's fault.
It's okay.
Full awareness that a great landmass lay between Europe and Asia only slowly seeped into the European consciousness, but by one of history's greatest ironies, led by the New World to be named not for its discoverer, but for one of the first to argue with conviction that it was indeed a new world unknown to Ptolemy. In 1507, a cartographer, Martin Waldesmuller, there we go, that's our guy, and we're about to talk about Amerigo Vespucci, there we go, published a treatise, the Cosmographe Introduction to Cosmography. There we go. In which he suggested that the New World should be called America after Amerigo Vespucci. Vespucci was a Florentine merchant and navigator sent to Spain as an agent of the ruling de Medici family. And yes, the ruling de Medici as in Catherine de Medici, which if any of y'all have ever watched the series Reign on Amazon, that's the show to watch if you want to learn a little more about that and how, the very first Queen Elizabeth and Mary Queen of Scots and Catherine de Medici, how all of that played out all within this time right here that we're talking about. He knew Columbus and may have been among those who welcomed him back from the first voyage. Oh, in the America Fun Facts, we weren't sure if they did know each other, but right here in this 1984 history book, it tells us they did know each other. And Christopher Columbus was one of the ones that welcomed Amerigo Vespucci back from one of his first voyages. What? Dude, that's like one of our very, very, very first episodes, like 20-something episodes ago. Like, what? I'm just blown away right now. He knew Columbus and may have been among those who welcomed him back from the first voyage, and certainly helped outfit his ships for the second and the third. Wow, and he even helped Vespucci outfit his ships. Wow! Or Vespucci helped Columbus with his ships. I don't know. Later, to his own accounts, Vespucci made 4 voyages to the New World, just like Columbus. Vespucci did not command any of these expeditions, but his distinction as a geographer and an interpreter of what he found exceeded that of Columbus. The great popularity of his writings was important in bringing home to Europe the true nature and extent of the discoveries. This was indeed a new world. Wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So they did know each other.
Long story short, yes. And they helped each other out.
Like, bro, what?
It makes sense.
History makes sense now. The Great Biological Exchange. The first European contacts with this new world began a diffusion of cultures, an exchange of such magnitude and pace as humanity had never known before and will never know again, short of contact with extraterrestrial life. What? And it was, in fact, more than a diffusion of cultures. It was the diffusion of a distinctive biological systems. If anything, the plants and animals of the two worlds were more different than the people and their ways of life. Europeans, for instance, had never seen such creatures as fearsome, if harmless, iguana, flying squirrels, fish with whiskers like catfish. Ah! Snakes that rattled castanets are rattlesnakes, or anything quite like the several other species: bison, cougars, armadillos, opossums, sloths, tapirs, anacondas, electric eels, vampire bats, and toucans, Andean condors, or hummingbirds. Among the few domesticated animals, they could recognize the dog and the duck, but turkeys, guinea pigs, llamas, vicunas, alpacas. Vicunas are like an alpaca and a llama had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm pretty sure that's how that happened. But it looks like, the two had, the perfect baby. The guanacos were all new. Guanaco? What's a guanaco? What is that? I've never heard of that before.
Probably some type of llama.
Well, let's look it up. Oh, you're right. It is another llama type.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like I sounded like a Pokemon master. It's another llama type.
Another llama species.
But it kind of looks like a gazelle, and a llama had a baby, though.
More like a llama and a kangaroo.
Or a llama and a kangaroo. Yeah, you're right. I see the roo. I see the roo.
There you go.
Alright. They were all new. Nor did the Indians know of cattle, pigs, sheep, goats, maybe chickens, which soon arrived in abundance. Within a half-century, for instance, whole islands of the Caribbean were overrun by pigs whose ancestors were bred in Spain. Ooh. So pigs didn't even originate here?
Mm-mm.
Wow. The exchange of plant life worked an even greater change, a revolution of the diets of both hemispheres. Before the discovery, three main staples of the modern diet were unknown in the Old World: maize, potatoes, sweet and white, and many kinds of beans, snap, kidney, lima beans, and others. The white potato, although commonly called the Irish potato, actually migrated from South America to Europe and only reached North America with Scot-Irish immigrants in the 1700s. Wow. So, not even the white potato.
Not even your so-called Irish potato is actually Irish.
Nope, they're South American. Wow. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Other New World food plants were manioc, soon a staple in tropical Africa, consumed in the United States chiefly as tapioca. Well, I guess that's our tapioca pudding right there. Mm-hmm. Mainly a staple for the old people. No offense. No offense to the elderly. But, hey, I like that tapioca pudding. I think it's pretty damn good.
Never had it.
Dude, you never had tapioca pudding?
No.
It is pretty good. It's really good. At least I like it. Not a whole lot of people do. It's a texture thing.
It's a texture thing.
It is a texture thing because, like, you know what? When we go to the store later, we're gonna get some tapioca pudding. Because now that we're talking about it, I want some.
Oh my goodness. Okay, tapioca.
I'm sorry. It's good.
All right, Tabby.
Peanuts, squash, peppers, tomatoes, pumpkins, pineapples, sassafras, papayas, guavas, avocados, and cacao, the source of chocolate. And chisel for chewing gum. Europeans soon introduced rice, wheat, barley, oats, wine grapes, melons, coffee, olives, bananas, Kentucky bluegrass, daisies, and the bane of the homeowner, dandelions. The bane of the homeowner, dandelions. What's wrong with the wish sticks, huh? Leave the wishy sticks alone.
We hate him. They're like fucking giant.
See, even King's like, leave them alone.
No, they look like giant bombs in my yard.
But
But what?
they're pretty.
Which part's pretty about? When they all...
The flower, when it blooms, and then when it turns into the little puff ball, and then you get to it away, and it's just such a pretty sight. Like, everything about it is beautiful.
And taking away my beautiful Kentucky bluegrass with your annoying long sprouted dandelions. So you like...
Dandelions are good for your health. I don't hear you complaining when I make your tea.
Dandelions are good for my health, but guess what? I don't like seeing them everywhere in my yard. I like seeing a nice green patch.
Well, good thing your wife is learning how to harvest them.
I know, right? Let's pluck the seeds.
Alright, we're gonna get back to the topic. Enough couples quarreling over here.
Or hangry over here. Don't mind us being hangry.
He's hangry, not me. The beauty of the exchange was that the food plants were more complementary than competitive. They grew in different soils and climates or on different schedules. Indian corn, it turned out, could flourish almost anywhere, high or low, hot, cold, wet, dry. It spread quickly throughout the world. Before the end of the 1500s, American maize and sweet potatoes were staple crops in China. Wow. Our American crops made it all the way to China, all the way on the other side.
But not modern day stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they really, tried to... Well, they didn't know about the other half over there. So they were probably sailing from South America, from Africa, South America, Africa, Madagascar, through Australia, all the way to get to China. Just to get that spread all the way across the world and stuff.
Yep, because you're going to ignore Russia.
That's pretty awesome. The Green Revolution exported from the Americas thus helped nourish a worldwide population explosion, probably greater than any since the invention of agriculture. Something like a 5-fold increase from 1630 to 1950, for some 50 million to almost 2.5 billion. Plants originally domesticated by American Indians now make up about a third of the world's food plants. Wow. So, I guess with the founding of the two Americas, or just the whole American continent in general, that really boosted the world's population. It boosted their trade. It made it possible where we have more than enough to eat everywhere across the world. And so what you're telling me here in this book is that the world really suffered to find enough food to eat or grow enough food to eat until they found the Americas and discovered the corn that was here?
Essentially, yes.
Which corn just so happened to accidentally breed with something to create it.
It's a beautiful thing.
This is... Wow. Europeans, moreover, adopted many Indian devices: the canoes, the snowshoes, the moccasins, hammocks, kayaks, ponchos, dog sleds, the toboggans, and parkas. Damn, that's a list. The rubber ball and the game of lacrosse had native origins.
Yep.
New words entered the languages of Europeans in profusion. Wigwam, teepee, papoose, succotash, hominy, tobacco, moose, skunk, opossum, woodchuck, chipmunk, tomahawk, mackinaw, hickory, pecan, raccoon, and hundreds of others, and new terms in translation: warpath, warpaint, paleface, medicine man, firewater, and the Aborigines left the map dotted with place names of native origin long after they were gone. From Miami to Yakima, from Penobscot, I guess, Penobscot to Yuma. There were still other New World contributions, tobacco, and a number of drugs, including coca. We all know what that means. For cocaine, Novocaine, Curare, the muscle relaxant, and cinchona bark for quinine? For quinine? I don't know what that is. Quinine? And one such common medical device, the enema tube. Native healers, one common medical device. Indian healers, unlike the snake oil merchants who traded on their reputation, were seldom quacks. But the white man presented them with exotic maladies that they could not handle, for the natives had lived in blissful ignorance for many infections that plagued the... It had lived in blissful ignorance of the many infections that plagued Europeans. Even minor European diseases like measles turned killer in the bodies of natives who had encountered them, and thus had built no immunity. Major diseases like smallpox and typhus killed all the more speedily. According to Thomas Harriot's account from the first colony sent by Sir Walter Raleigh to Roanoke Island, within a few days after Englishmen visited the native villages of the neighborhood, people began to die very fast, and many in short space. The disease was so strange that they neither knew what it was nor how to cure it. The like, by report of the oldest man in the country, had never happened before, time out of mind. Now it happened time and time again. The first contacts with some of Columbus's sailors devastated whole communities, and the epidemics would spread rapidly into the interior. But the natives had some restitution. They got the worst of the bargain, but they infected the Europeans with syphilis. This, rather than diarrhea, was the true Montezuma's revenge.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy. And with that, we're going to end our 1.3 America Narrative History. Woo! Yowza. Syphilis was the real Montezuma's revenge. I mean, I can't blame them, but, whew. So that was really cool, really interesting. What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was the biological exchange of environments, of these species. How, like, they...
Plants and animals?
Yes.
Honestly, that was one of the cooler parts to me, but the part that amazed me the most...
We all know what amazed you the most.
Amerigo Vespucci and Columbus knowing each other. Like, that was something I speculated in one of the very, very first episodes that we ever did for this show. And now I know for a fact, like, and everybody apparently in 1984 knew for a fact that they knew each other, whereas today we sit here and, theorize about it and speculate, but nobody really knows. But here I have a book that says, yeah! Here's the answer to your question. Yep, they sure did.
They sure did, huh?
They sure did. Like, wow. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
So, like, I wonder...
And you like tapioca.
And I like tapioca. And we all learned something new about our hostess today. She likes tapioca.
Tapioca, and she's gonna make her husband try some.
I sure am.
Couldn't the kid next door, you're not gonna make me.
Oh, I'll make you alright.
Yeah.
And with that, the episode has come to a close. Please leave us a like and a comment. Tell us what your favorite part about today's episode was. What did you find to be the most interesting? What did you find to be the coolest? Do you have any questions? If you do, leave them in the comments down below. Remember to like and share all of our videos. Hit the follow button so that you are always notified when we drop a new video.
Yep.
And with that... Remember, guys, to always live life with eyes wide open. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, y'all.